Smile. She's mad before we get started. That's what. Really, you gonna let this guy? Hello.
Showtime.
Right in over your heart. I pledge allegiance to the flag Madam Clerk, could you call the roll?
A quorum is present.
Any persons wish to address the council, could you call the Successor Agency Housing Authority to order?
A quorum is present.
Or any item on today's agenda, except for the public hearing, may do so at this time.
Yeah, no one.
Okay, if there's no public comment, we'll move on to item 1, CSA 1 and H1.
Move allow payments.
Second.
Madam City Clerk.
Council and agency members, Dodson.
Aye.
Padilla.
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Mayor Chairman Butts.
Aye. Now, Madam Clerk, and I guess this is for the city attorney, since HE1 and HE2 consider are about the same address and the same business, but different facets, is it possible to combine the public hearings into one and let there be public comment simultaneously?
There can be, but please allow them additional time if they need to discuss those items.
Time, Ken? All right.
So together,
So together, we're going to take them together. Madam Clerk, what's the next scheduled matter?
a hearing to consider the permits and license committee denial of a business license renewal request for the Los Dos Hermanas to operate Music Box at 605 West Arborvitae Street in Inglewood, California 90301, and also denial of the business license renewal request for the Los Dos Hermanos to the billiard room at 605 Arborvitae, Inglewood 90301.
Operate music boxes, is that the second one? That's the first one.
Second one's for billiard room.
Okay, could you read the second one as well?
I did.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
See, I'd never heard operate music. Okay. So everybody knows, the second one is to operate music. Has a notice of these hearings been given in the time, form, and manners required by law?
Notice has been given.
Have you received any written correspondence on either of these?
No, no.
All right. Is there a staff report, Mr. City Manager?
Later, our Permits and Licenses Committee Chairperson will give the staff.
Okay. Ms. Decatur, you do know you're going to be reporting on both these issues, right? All right.
Afternoon. My name is Yakima Decatur, and I am the deputy to the city manager who serves as the chairperson for the Permits and Licenses Committee. The items before you are to consider an appeal by Felipe Casillas of Los Dos Hermanos, located at 605 West Arborvitae Street, to operate music boxes and a billiard table at the establishment. On July 28th of this year, the P&L Committee considered an application for business license renewal filed by Mr. Casillas to operate music boxes and billiard tables at Los Dos Hermanos. The applicant was not present at this particular meeting, and the committee, by consensus, instructed staff to send a certified letter in both English and Spanish, compelling the applicant to appear before the board and affording him the right to offer testimony to the committee prior to an action being taken. On the rescheduled date of August 11th, the committee considered the application, and testimony from the Inglewood Police Department was given on the record. IPD discussed the unauthorized live entertainment held at the establishment, which violates Inglewood Municipal Code Section 8-47.1. Also, IPD further testified that the establishment has been the subject of numerous anonymous citizen complaints and radio calls for police services that have impacted the quality of life for the residents in close proximity to the location. The applicant explained to the committee that he sold his business to Ms. Nunez in January 2015 and was unaware that he had to transfer the entity out of his name. The committee explained to Mr. Casillas that he was still the owner on record and was a responsible party. The motion was unanimously carried to deny the business license, and the applicant's right to appeal the decision to the City Council was explained. The city received notice of appeal from attorney Armando H. Chavera, who is representing the applicant. On August 18, 2016, the Inglewood Police Department was part of a joint task force with California Department of Alcoholic Beverage Control, who investigated the location. Detective Luis Jaramillo is present on behalf of the Inglewood Police Department to provide additional information with regards to the investigation.
Do you want to give that information now, or you want to wait for questions? Why don't you have the investigator come up and give us his information? Good afternoon, officer. Basically, we just wanted your testimony as to why you felt that Los Dos Hermanos has been operating in such a manner to deny their request for these two items, these two appeals.
IRS specifically. Several years, 2005. Recently, last year, I received numerous complaints from various citizens that wish to remain anonymous for fear of retaliation. That there's illicit activity occurring in or about that location, and specifically the loud music and what they have told me illegal activity that's occurring in or about that location. Our officers have also gone there several times on several radio calls stemming from shots fired, 415 music calls, and various other calls for police service because of this location. This location right there, it's nestled in a residential neighborhood right there off of Oak and Arborvita.
That's satisfactory. You know, so to be clear, we really can't hold them responsible for people that go into a public place, whether they have gang-related backgrounds or not. That's not something we can hold the proprietor responsible for. We can't hold them responsible for shots fired calls, but we can hold them responsible for operating in the confines of their license. And so you're saying that they have operated music without being licensed to do that? That'd be.
Have been operating their music box and pool tables without
Have you,
license.
all right. And Mr. Cater, was that the finding of the P&L committee as well?
Applicant was operating live entertainment without a permit.
Okay.
They also failed to tell the finance department that they were selling alcohol and that they were an eating establishment.
Did they,
They are registered with ABC as an eating establishment.
okay, are they allowed, do they have a liquor license from ABC?
They do have a liquor license for ABC. However, they failed to tell us that they were selling liquor
Okay.
because based on liquor sales, then their taxes are different.
Oh, okay, so they weren't reporting their taxes properly, is that correct? Okay, well, that,
How long has that been for?
I would have to ask finance.
all right, okay. Before we go any further, I'm just getting some clarification because I wanted, since the officer gave testimony.
Might I
and-
add, Mr. Mayor,
What's it?
if I may, please?
Oh, please.
They were also conducting live entertainment. Without a permit, which is not permissible in their establishment. They were given 15 days to tables and to cease. Conducted the joint task force operation with ABC. They were found to be operating the pool tables and the music box. And there was also a slot machine found in location, which ABC is handling. They're
Okay.
handling
Okay, thank you. Okay, so with that, if you'd stay there, officer, this is where we'd like to receive comments from the appellant, if the appellant wishes to make any comment. Appellant or his representative. No, Mr. Bibbo, you're not the appellant. Not yet.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is Armando Chavira, and I'm an attorney in Woodland Hills, California, and I've been in touch with the city attorney's office and Ms. Decatur on this matter since the appeal was filed. Now, I looked through the agenda, council agenda for the last several years, and I didn't see any permit revocation in that time period. So it's not something that the council does regularly or even frequently. But what I wanted to do was, because my comments are addressed to, in part, the legality of the city's denial of the renewal, a lot of what I say probably will make sense to Mr. Campos, couched in law. This is described as an appeal, but the fact remains that this is really a second opportunity to discuss the matter as a hearing, which is being done at this time. But even after this hearing, the applicant has a right to another independent hearing at the Superior Court. Now, the reason that I say that is because this place has been permitted with alcohol sales since 1976. I don't know why the city doesn't know it sells alcohol, but it's been there for a while. That's before I even graduated law school. And it's been owned by Mr. Casillas since that time. Now, these permits, despite the fact that the city may have a denial or non-renewal policy, the fact remains that they're vested in the land and in Mr. Casillas's name because they're a vested fundamental right. The city has certain obligations to ensure that the procedure employed is one that complies with established law, and that includes court decisions. Now, one of the things that I saw in your code is, and certainly it was used by the permit committee, is section 8-35. That code in particular says that if the application is denied, the city shall attach an application to the application, a statement of reasons for the denial. I don't know if that was done, but I don't see any evidence that it was, and the words of that statute are mandatory. But I did see in the minutes that there was reference made to calls for service and also the quality of life being affected in the surrounding vicinity. Now, I saw no evidence of gangs or of any gang issue. I'm sure there are gangs there. They're almost everywhere. But I think the officer testified that it's been a problem there since 2005. I didn't see that in the evidence, and I really don't think it should be considered by the council because it's inflammatory, number one, and there's no evidence of it. The reasons given, at least in the minutes, by the city and by the permit review committee has to do with some of the issues that the officer testified to, and that is the loud music. And yes, there was loud music on a couple of occasions, and I went ahead and asked the city to give me calls for service logs for that location and other locations. And I think I saw one, maybe two loud music complaints for live music. It's something that was done intermittently. It wasn't constantly done. Now, the place has a jukebox, or really had, it's not there anymore, along with its billiard tables. So I think one of the things that the council has to consider, just as a matter of law, is the relationship between the billiard hall or billiard permit and the jukebox permit with respect to the complaints that the city has. Now, the calls for service appear to be many, but if you really look at the the casino, this business had maybe 100 calls since 2013, and that was pointed out by staff. But at that time, and during that period, the casinos had 1,500 calls for service. And when we talk about applying the law equally to people who have permits, when you look at the Dos Hermanos having 100 calls since 2013, and you look at the casino having 1,500 calls, and these calls for service were given to the city attorney's office and also to Ms. Decatur for evidence in support of the position that, yes, there were calls for service, but they weren't, they didn't rise to the extent of it being a police problem when you compare it to other locations in the city. Now, getting back to my argument, the question I think the council has to consider and should consider is, and really it applies to both the music and the billiard, and the question is, how were these permits used illegally in contravention of the city's code? In particular, I think the city is alleging that the billiard permit was used in an illegal manner. And I saw no evidence of that. There's no relationship. And I think the city attorney knows that under law that there has to be a nexus requirement met. And that is, there has to be a relationship between the use of that permit and the problems that the location has caused. I didn't see anything in all the evidence that I reviewed, and I think I pretty much reviewed everything, that established a link between the billiard use and the problems at the location. Now, this is a requirement that's imposed by the courts. I didn't see the grounds in your statutory scheme for controlling locations that have permits as to what's required for the evidence to show that the billiard permit, or for that matter, the jukebox permit, were used in an illegal manner. At the time that this situation arose with the live music, there was no permit for it, there's no question. And that was a matter of, not constantly, but every once in a while they did have parties where somebody would bring in a mariachi band. Okay? That's admitted. The question again goes back to how were these two permits used contrary to your code or even established case law. Now, I know one of you gentlemen has a law degree, but I didn't learn any of this in law school. I learned it because in most jurisdictions, the codes don't have the language that connects a permit to an unauthorized or illegal activity. But in everything I reviewed here, there's no mention of how the billiard and music permits that the place has had since 1976 were used illegally. Now, the result is one thing, but the connection between the permits and the complaints are seriously important. And the law says, well, if you have a permit that's being used illegally, the city has a right to revoke it or deny it. In this case, it's a revocation, no matter how the city has its statutory scheme or its policy in place. This revocation of these two permits carries a very high burden. Remember, they've been in use 40 years. As to the tax matter, I don't know how the taxes were reported, but if the city doesn't know it's a bar 40 years, there's something wrong somewhere.
We're just not a bunch of drinkers.
Pardon me?
We're not a bunch of drinkers. We didn't know.
Yeah, but you give licenses and permits, and you've been giving one for 40 years. But I'll tell you, I'm not a beer drinker so much, but people have the right to drink beer, and they have the right to do all kinds of other stuff. Now, in this particular case, the complaints are that this location was impacting the quality of life in the area. I'll grant you that live music probably did for a short time. But on the other end, the information I read shows that there were anonymous complaints. That's something anyone can say, but I didn't see any listing of residents at the permit review hearing. I don't know if they're here today or not, but the people that would be affected certainly have a voice and they can be heard. But the question goes back to what procedure connects, or what evidence connects the billiard and music box use to the problems mentioned by the city. And again, don't be swayed by the gang stuff and the word that it's, or the information that it's illegal activity is nebulous. It doesn't show. What is it? What is it? And again, the worst thing found here, and I work with ABC a lot. When they go into a place, they look, they know what they're looking for. The worst thing found here was a slot machine. And yeah, it's not a good thing, but really that's as bad as it got. We agree. Well, unless you're in Las Vegas. But even there, they're not a good thing.
I want you to represent me.
In the end, I think that when you do look at the evidence, that it doesn't seem strong enough to revoke these two permits. I certainly would work with staff and condition them so that they're not a problem and restrict them in some manner. But I think what it does is if the city's looking to kill this business, this is probably the way to do it. But because that's the case, it is a livelihood of Mr. Casillas and has been for the last 40 years. Now, I do want to incorporate by reference the information that I gave the city, and that was the call for service. And I just want to close by saying that it's a tough thing to look at any government and have to have this, to some extent, a restraint of treating everybody equally. And the Equal Protection Clause applies to businesses. as well as citizens and individuals. In this case, I think that if you keep the emotion underpinnings to a minimum and you look at the evidence in the case, there's no hard evidence to revoke these two permits. I think I more readily see city governments revoke business licenses altogether instead of, in this case, a billiard and the music box permit. So I think that unless the city can show the relationship, and I haven't seen it, between their use and the problems associated with it, I just don't think there's evidence to sustain the permit committee's hearing. And keep in mind, this is a new trial, and there's another new trial which might occur in Superior Court where the judge hears the evidence, officers testify, and really we end up doing the same thing. So I'd rather make the argument here, and again, to some extent, it probably makes a lot more sense to the city attorney, but I've tried, I think, to relax with the legal stuff of nexus requirement, of equal protection, of fundamental vested rights, of de novo hearings, and just as a matter of common sense, ask yourselves, what's the evidence? And I'll be glad to take any questions, and I promise not to speak so much in response.
Okay, are there any council questions or comments? Yes.
I can certainly come back and answer questions
One
after the
second.
public comment.
Oh, okay. Are there any persons present who wish to address the city council on the matter?
Mayor, for the actual hearing, there are no.
See, I didn't think there were.
That's why we
I
didn't
really
restrict
didn't.
it in the beginning.
This is just we're going to uphold it or we're going to overturn it. Okay, so as I said before, are there any council comments or questions? I think we'll start with Mr. Morales, since it's in your district.
Yeah, and Mr. Campos, I know you'll chime in because one of the things that I mean, and their attorney did an absolutely great job of kind of labeling the decision we have to make to just one or two things, which is whether or not they violated their permit and whether or not that is enough to take the action we're taking. And I'd like to hear from you before I make my comments in terms of, is that a requirement for us here, or is that just kind of the perception and scope that he's left us?
Well, and before you do that, I want to piggyback on that because it's my understanding that this is a renewal, and although his counselor kept saying a revocation, there's a big difference. We're taking a permit that is expiring, and we're making it the reason that permits renew is to give the city opportunities to decide if they want to continue with those permits in place. And Mr. Campos, I know I'm not an attorney, as he's made that very clear abundantly, but that is, there's a difference between revocation and renewal, is there not?
That is correct.
All right, thank you. If you had anything to add to that, Mr. Cater.
No, but I would like you to answer the question I left.
The question again was?
The fact that if in fact we can only bring about, for instance, when their attorney spoke, he said that essentially the only thing in question is whether or not there was a violation to the existing permit and whether or not an action can be taken against that permit. And what I really was heading at is what the mayor said, which is there is nothing that we're actually revoking. There is an actual renewal in place, and that's what I wanted you to clarify. The mayor kind of said it, and that's what I was leaving for you.
And you're both correct that this is, I believe, a denial of the new application for the
Exactly.
permit as opposed to a revocation. And as the mayor stated, it's on an annual basis. Additionally, this particular applicant's attorney has indicated that there's some additional issues that he's brought out to the attention of the city staff that the city council can take in consideration for.
So, okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify, and thank you, Mayor. I'll hand you the questions next time. But the bottom line is, so as a renewal, For me, I take this as a new application, which is really what it is. Every year we look at it. Unfortunately, you're right. This business has been there since 1976, and I don't only look at the actual calls on file to the police department. As a representative not only of the area, I can guarantee you that we've received calls here, as well as my colleagues, I'm sure, has received it. So when you receive a new application, which is what I'll call it because it's a renewal, you start to look at whether the business fits in the surrounding area, what the impacts are, and kind of the quality of life, because that's the key here. Now, this is nothing to do with things that have been said. You're absolutely right. This is the scope. We're taking this question by itself here today. And, we have the opportunity to do so. Our process allows us to do it, and you're absolutely right. You can take it to another process later on, and if that's the case, then they'll weigh however they weigh it. But here, I can tell you that I'm taking all of the information that I've gathered over the years. I know that my colleagues will go ahead and speak to the same. And as well as, of course, we received with the staff report that includes the hearing that happened in front of the P&L, and we have to weigh that as well. That being said, I'm fully prepared to uphold the decision of the P&L committee. And those are my short comments. I'll be addressing some of the questions as they come about, but that's what I wanted to say.
Councilman Franklin?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. It has not been established the business hours of this business. Do you have what is the posted scheduled business hours for the business?
No.
Because I'm trying to identify when there's a call-in of complaints, anonymous or otherwise, the approximate hour of the day to see if it is after 10 p.m. or 2 a.m. in the morning that has caused the quality of life issues, particularly when families are ready to retire for the evening to gear up for the next day. The other item, and while you're looking that up, the other question is, I haven't heard what the business is. Because if they're not licensed to sell food, they're not licensed to sell alcoholic beverages, they're not licensed to have live entertainment, they're not licensed to have slot machines, then what are they in business doing?
No, that was rhetorical. That was rhetorical. Okay.
So the challenge is, and I heard the attorney mention the Inglewood Municipal Code, but I think the municipal code that we really rely on is 8-53.3 and not 8-35, which clearly says a written permit shall be obtained from this committee for permits and license for whatever we're talking about, live entertainment, eating, et cetera. Clearly, there's no permits for slot machines. And so I listen to my colleague loud and clear, but I see these things are because they don't have a current license to operate in the city of Inglewood, maybe with the county, but not with the city, that there is a significant impact that there has been things done illegally because the city has not received the proper permit for them to operate. So I just want to make sure I get that point out. Thank you.
Councilman Padilla.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of, so since 1976, they've been in operation, but and granted, they have an ABC permit, correct, to sell alcohol, but they never notified the city that they were selling alcohol. They never took the onus upon themselves to say, wow, we haven't been charged by the city of Inglewood since 1976. Maybe we should call them or go over there and check to make sure that we have all our paperwork in order. But they never took that initiative. All they're saying is, well, hey, let sleeping dogs lay, right? And that's not the type of business that I'm looking for in the city of Inglewood. I, too, have received complaints about this location from residents that live around the bar right there on Arborvitae. And the complaints have centered around activities that are not something that are not good, whether it's gang activity or people loitering outside or drinking outside. So I've had folks that have reached out to me to make those complaints. I don't rely solely on calls for service.
because I know after a while, people don't want to call because they just figure, hey, you know, what good does it do? The place has been there for 35 years, so they give up. But I also don't like the fact that you have a location that decides that, hey, let's just sneak this slot machine in here and let's give it a go and see how long the slot machine will last before we get caught. And so they slip it in there again, doing some illegal activity. I also noticed in the staff report there was minors, correct, inside the location when you guys did your check recently. There was a couple of minors in there, so I'm concerned about that as well. I don't know. I think when you have an establishment that's been here for 40 years, whatever it is, that they have an onus to be a good neighbor, be a good business, and I just don't see that happening. Maybe I'm wrong, but I don't see that. So those are just my observations.
Okay, I'm going to have to take issue with some of the things that have been said here, and this is why we're council to deliberate. But the reality is that a business proprietor, in my opinion, cannot be held responsible for the attributes that are attributed to their clientele. A public place is a public place. They don't do background checks at the door. They don't have to, and that would be no reason to either revoke or not allow someone a business permit. You can't rely solely on calls for service because many of them are anonymous, and there are some times that people will make calls. It's not unheard of because they don't like a particular location. They may be well grounded in those feelings, but they might want to harass people. So calls for service can't be the barometer. But there are some solid things that have occurred. They operated slot machines, and that was discovered during a police operation. They have had live entertainment, and they don't have a permit to do that. And although they've operated for a long time, these are things that can be taken into account in our decision as to whether we're going to renew their permits to operate in the city of Inglewood. And although they have had an alcohol license, they had a responsibility, an affirmative responsibility to pay the proper taxes, whether the city was aware or not. But even then, I don't believe we're not asking to revoke their ABC license. What we're deciding solely here is, do we want to overturn the planning commission, the P&L commission's committee's decision to not renew? We're not revoking anything. We're not taking anything away. We're using our regulatory ability to decide if we're going to go forward another year. And so based on those documented things from the police department, the fact that they have had live entertainment without proper licensing, that they operated a slot machine, and was there any complaints that were documented as far as underage drinking occurring in the location? Okay. Were there any complaints as it relates to minors in the club? And that was during an operation? During an inspection? Okay. And so what I would recommend is that the council consider just the things that we know are documented, the things that where there were obvious violations, and then consider that as we decide whether to uphold or revoke the denial.
Mayor, in agreement with you on that, and with that, I would make the motion that we uphold the denials for both HE1 and HE2.
Second.
Madam City Clerk?
Council members Dodson.
Aye.
Padilla.
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Mayor Butt.
Aye. Madam Clerk, what's the next scheduled matter?
The The next scheduled matter is a public hearing to consider the adoption of an ordinance granting a franchise to Torrance Valley Pipeline Company LLC to operate and maintain a pipeline and appurtenances for the transmission of hydrocarbon substances in the city of Inglewood.
Has the notice of this hearing been given in the time, form, and manner required by law? And do you have the affidavit on file?
Notice has been given and affidavit is on file.
Have any communications been received?
No communications have been received.
Mr. City Manager, staff report on the matter?
Louis Atwell, Public Works Director, will give the staff report.
Welcome, Mr. Atwell.
Mayor, before we begin, I would request to recuse myself.
No,
Um,
you may
the-
be recused.
And I'll let you know before I leave. The proprietor actually was granted by ExxonMobil Oil Corporation, and I have invested a significant amount of stock involved, and I do not want my vote to be prejudiced at all. So on that motion, I will step down.
Yes, you may.
Mayor, after talking to legal counsel, identified that what occurred on March 18th, we received notification ExxonMobil transferred the pipeline assets to Torrance Valley Pipeline. Therefore, I am available to take testimony and be able to vote. Thank you.
I feel much better about that.
Ralphie is back.
Okay, Mr. Atwell, with that,
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, and residents of the city. Public hearing is to consider granting a franchise agreement to Torrance Valley Pipeline Company, LLC, to operate and maintain a pipeline and the related appurtenances for the transmission of hydrocarbon substances. In this case, it's crude oil. 30th, 1992, the Mayor and Council adopted ordinance number 92-07 on Mobile Oil Corporation, 20-year franchise agreement to operate the 16-inch pipeline M70. Pipeline extends within the city from the intersection of La Cienega Boulevard and Industrial Avenue to the intersection of Inglewood Avenue and Century Boulevard. April 21, 2015, the City Council adopted 12 granting ExxonMobil a 20-year franchise operation of the pipeline. March 18, 2016, the city received notification on ExxonMobil of the proposed transfer of pipeline assets to Torrance Valley Pipeline Company, LLC. Assets were finally transferred to Torrance Valley on July 1st, 2016. Torrance Valley has requested to enter into a franchise agreement, rights and responsibilities as the ExxonMobil. 2016. Public hearing was set for today to receive input on pipeline to operate and maintain pipeline M70. Staff recommends that the Mayor and Council conduct the public hearing to receive franchise agreement Torrance Valley to operate and maintain pipeline M70. That concludes my report.
are there members of the public present that wish to be heard on the matter?
There are, actually not with regard to the substance of that particular item, but what took place right before it. If I'm not mistaken, any communication that you received should have been public rather than a quiet thing. At least it's not allowed at SCAG or many of the other significant bodies where public testimony is being seen. So I hope you do make sure you abide by the Brown Act in the future.
All right, we'll close public comment. Or any council comments?
No.
Is there a motion to waive further reading?
I move to waive further reading.
Second.
Madam Clerk.
Council members Dodson,
Aye.
Padilla,
Aye.
Morales.
Aye.
Franklin.
Aye.
Mayor Buds.
Aye.
Who will introduce?
I'll introduce it, sure.
M1.
Approval of the minutes of the council meeting held on September 27th, 2016.
So move.
Second.
Madam City Clerk.
Council members Dodson,
Aye.
Padilla,
Aye.
Morales,
Aye.
Franklin,
Aye.
Mayor Buds.
Aye. Consent calendar,
Move 2 through 9.
I want to pull 3,
Moving 3.
and so you move.
Second.
Madam Clerk.
Council members Dodson,
Aye.
Padilla,
Aye.
Morales,
Aye.
Franklin,
Aye.
Mayor Buds.
Aye. Item 3.
Staff report recommending adoption of a resolution calling and giving notice of the general municipal election to be held on April 4th, 2017, and requesting the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors to render specified services to the city.
Move adoption.
Second.
Madam Clerk.
Council members Dodson,
Aye.
Padilla,
Aye.
Morales,
Aye.
Franklin,
Aye.
Mayor Buds.
Aye. 01. Okay, we're going to have to also call H2. We didn't call that on the consent. And
Okay.
so could I modify your motion, Mr. Morales, to include H2?
So modified.
And the second was by Councilman Franklin.
So modified.
So could you call the roll again?
Sure. Council members Dodson,
Aye.
Padilla,
Aye.
Morales,
Aye.
Franklin,
Aye.
Mayor Buds.
Aye. 01.
Staff report recommending adoption of an ordinance number 1701, approving zoning code amendments 2016-02 to establish regulations for transit-oriented zones, and adoption of an ordinance number 1703, approving zone change 2016-01 to establish various transit-oriented zoning designations to be introduced.
Motion to wait further reading.
Second.
Madam
1
Clerk.
and 3.
Second.
Madam Clerk.
Council members Dodson,
Aye.
Padilla,
Aye.
Morales,
Aye.
Franklin,
Aye.
Mayor Buds.
Aye. Move adoption 2 and 4.
Second.
Madam Clerk.
Council members Dodson,
Aye.
Padilla,
Aye.
Morales,
Aye.
Franklin,
Aye.
Mayor Buds.
Aye. 02.
Ordinance number 1702, amending the Inglewood Municipal Code to add the following streets to permit parking District Number 12 as follows: Glasgow Avenue from 350 feet north of Hillcrest Boulevard to Spruce Avenue, Spruce Avenue from Hendry Avenue to Glasgow Avenue, and Hillcrest Boulevard from Hendry Avenue to Glasgow Avenue.
Motion to wait for the.
Second.
Madam Clerk.
Council members Dodson,
Aye.
Padilla,
Aye.
Morales,
Aye.
Franklin,
Aye.
Mayor Buds.
Aye.
Move adoption.
Second.
Madam Clerk.
Council members Dodson,
Aye.
Padilla,
Aye.
Morales,
Aye.
Franklin,
Aye.
Mayor Buds.
Aye. A1.
Thank you, Mayor. We had 3 closed sessions. The first one was closed session number 1 regarding the case of Kraft versus City of Inglewood. Los Angeles Superior Court, case number BC 54305. As to that item, the discussion was held and direction given to staff. As to CS2, there was a case regarding Samseed Dean versus City of Inglewood. Los Angeles Superior Court, case number BC 559951. As to that item, there was again direction given to staff. As to CS3, which was a closed session regarding real property negotiations, the property located at 101 South La Brea Avenue in the City of Inglewood. Negotiating parties are Hal and Dr. Betty Walker. For the city, the negotiators Artie Fields, the city manager. As to that item, there was discussion regarding the price and terms of compensation. Again, a discussion was held and direction given to staff. As to A2, there's no oral report from the city attorney's office.
Thank you, Mr. City Attorney. CM1.
There are no oral reports from the city manager's office.
C1, Madam City Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. For the past several weeks, I ran a student election initiative, educational initiative, encouraging our local high school students to learn about voting. And it included 6 high schools: Inglewood, Morningside, Inglewood City Honors, at Luzinger, Lawndale, and Centinela Valley. Students debated intelligently, and they argued the pros and cons of several propositions on the November 8th ballot. And also Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump were a part of those debates. I was able to give a brief history of the voting in America and help 16-year-olds to pre-register to vote and also register 18-year-olds for the first time. The Los Angeles County Register Recorder's Office was there in attendance and advised the young students that they could receive up to $140 for working at the polls on Election Day. Each event was extremely successful, and I was truly excited for the young people. I also wanted to mention, not to forget, next Tuesday is Election Day. Please get out and vote. It's very serious, and it's your duty. And that is the end of my closing remarks.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Madam City Treasurer.
Thank you, Mayor. Would like to report that I did purchase this morning a federal home loan bond, $1 million bond. It also have the coupon of 1.625. It's a 5-year non-call for 6 months, meaning that I will get at least 6 months call protection before that bond is called away from me. And also purchased a $250,000 CD from Higgins Capital at $250,000. That has a 1.55 coupon. That concludes my report.
Thank you, Madam City Treasurer. Any persons wish to address the City Council on the city business not elsewhere considered may do so at this time. 1 minute.
Michael Benbow, First District. I'm so glad that you abided by the recommendations of our
P&L Committee. Permits and License Committee.
License Committee. I have a building, and it's not a bar, that's very, very close to me. Keeps me up to 12 o'clock at night with live bands, horns, not just anything else, but horns, live band, and it plays constantly. And we complained about it, and it's also on Arborvitae, but it's closer to Prairie. And that band goes on and on and on. We've complained, and all we're told is they have a license. Well, from my understanding, that license will probably be revoked too, because it holds the community as captives. We're in a community where there's a lot of disabled people, and we also have a hospital that's not far away, and I'm sure they can hear it in the rooms at the hospital. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Alfonso Parker, Jr. I'm a Vietnam veteran, 66, 67, also a conscious objector. For all of you with your head in the sands, as you know, the newspapers have been blowing up with the VA sons, the current soldiers, and the ones in the past. Hillary Clinton is in violation of a national security and domestic security clearance cleared by the United States Air Force, not Department of Defense. Maxine Waters, who reviewed my records, and other black, we care for our soldiers and military personnel, reviewed them and admitted that these documents were fraudulent. The soldier never served. She's in violation of hers because the minute she got hands on a document like that, you're required, when you're embedded, to immediately notify the closest center and take custody of those documents until you're relieved.
Thank you, Mr. Parker.
We're all committing treason. Every last one of them. And thanks to the Bush's domestic terrorists.
Mr. Parker,
domestic terrorists.
thank you.
And if you're vetted, you're one of them too.
Good afternoon. My name is Greg Dandridge. I am a professional stuntman, and I'm here to address you about the arena being going to be built soon. And I'd like to know, is it possible, since it's considered family friendly, would you consider opening up a roller skating rink as part of that? It's family friendly. There is no roller skating rink in the metropolitan LA anymore. There used to be one on Venice La Brea. It's been closed for some years now. And it would be, to make a larger argument more brief, by having people, well, not in my age, but younger, we both benefit from that interaction. The younger skaters that come there can benefit from our knowledge, how we conduct ourselves, et cetera, which is beneficial in the long run. And then it's just a good exercise and a good family fun. And as part of that, I imagine everybody in this room has one time either has roller skated or knows someone that does. Consider that, and that's the bottom line.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Irene Cowley, District 2, and I'm also here representing CLU, Clergy and Laity, United for Economic Justice. We were here 7 months ago, asking you about the police-involved shooting involving, the names just missed me, Keisha Michael. And we were given understanding that it was being investigated and that we would find out something, and I'm here to ask you, what is the something? Did you all see the article on the front page of the Times last week? If we in Inglewood are going to invite the world to come to our door and watch football and shop and do all these wonderful things, we also need to have an open voice, an open face to the community. We need to be honest with each other and find out what is going on. What is the status of this investigation?
Thank you.
That was a question.
I know.
I support that statement.
Thank you, sir.
My name is Diane Sembrano, and I actually think it's really great that the Times has finally begun covering us. And I hope everybody noticed that besides that story, there's another comment this week which suggests that as the County Board of Supervisors make their new oversight commission, they make sure they do not follow the concepts of the Inglewood one. Wow, 2 mentions. But then, of course, I'm far more excited that once again I get to say, front page, business section, Sunday, gosh oh golly, everything I've been telling you about the NFL stadiums, not just me. Maybe you should have read the stuff and listened so I wouldn't have to say, told you so.
My name is Willie A.G., and I live in the beautiful city of Inglewood. I wouldn't even permit the L.A. Times on my front yard. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Stuart Bailey. I live in the 3rd District. I would just like to say kudos to the trial for permits and license. You did the right thing. And the attorney actually saying that we are not educated enough to understand what he was saying, and that Mr. Campos is the only man that's qualified to understand law.
We all know that, though.
Yes. I would just like to say, as they would say in Dragnet, just the facts, ma'am. Have a good evening. Everybody have a great week.
Thank you. Okay, we'll close public comment. Council comments, Councilman Dotson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank the principal, her name is Sue Hong, at Animal High School for inviting me to their community breakfast this last Tuesday. It was very well attended, and I appreciate being there. I want to also thank everybody who came out to the Coffee with the Councilman, and Assemblywoman Autumn Burke. It was very well attended. Everybody had a great time, and I want to thank the mayor and Councilman Franklin and Councilman Alex Padilla for coming and joining with me. The people who attended, they were very appreciative that you guys were there. They were able to not only talk to me, but talk to other council members and Assemblywoman Burke. And I've received several phone calls that they want us to do it again. So we will be looking at it, but I want to thank everybody who did participate. It went over very well. I thank you all very much. And one quick thing, I am so grateful that we have a P&L committee, because you guys got all the information to allow the city council to make the right decision. So thank you all very much.
Thank you. Councilman Padilla?
Thanks, Mayor. You know, and by the way, I do want to congratulate Councilman Dotson, a very good turnout at his event with Autumn Burke, the Assemblywoman. A good exchange of information took place. And it's those type of community events that allows us to really get a feel for what folks are talking about and what's important to them. So thank you for putting that together. I know Councilman Franklin's going to talk about an event we attended in his district that day as well. But again, these are the type of events that just prove that we're headed in the right direction. The city of Inglewood is doing things that are improving our community, and it's just really good to be a part of it. And I want to thank all of you for coming out and being a part of today's council meeting. Enjoy the rest of your week.
Thank you,
Oh,
Council.
by the way, I'm sorry. I also want to thank the police and the fire department. Last night, they were out there making sure that our kids were safe on Halloween night, and kudos to our police and fire department for doing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Franklin?
As we announced last year, Inglewood is on the rise. We continue to rise with new retail tenants coming into our cities, particularly the ones that you say you want to come into the city. It doesn't do us any good to have and support retail tenants to come in the city if it's not a store that you're willing to patronize. The last several weeks, we had the new store called the Gap Factory that has come into our city, and then this past Saturday, we had Old Navy that's coming in. And we continue to have other tenants that are on the process as we speak, getting ready to open up new ones that we've never had in our city before. And it's all because that we've identified that we have one key thing, and that's buying power. And buying power, that if you build it and we like it, we'll patronize it. And that turned out to be a very successful event this past Saturday. Also, I want to reach out to Councilman Dotson and his Come Meet the Coffee with the Councilman. It was outstanding, and I have to tell you, I had my granddaughter with me, and that she says, "Papa, this school, is this for women only?" And I said, "Yep." So she says, "Oh, I want to come here." And so she made a lap around the track before we left. So you have already made an impression, Councilman, so I just want to keep up the good work. Thank you very much. Have a blessed day.
Thank you. Councilman Morales?
Covered it pretty good. I just want to thank everybody for coming out. Thank you.
Well, I wanted to cover a couple things. First of all, I want to thank Ms. Cowick for, once again bringing up her request for information about the incident in February at Inglewood Avenue in Manchester. There is an investigation still ongoing by both the police department, the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. They have a specialized unit that looks into those things. And we hope that within the next 60, 90 days, hopefully closer to 60, that, we will have closure on that, both internally and for the community. Want to talk about the Citizen Oversight Commission article. In the city of Los Angeles, by charter, the police commission is the head of the police department, and that's why they are allowed the latitude to receive information and take actions that the police oversight commission that was created here in Inglewood does not. And to be honest with you, when the council created that way back when, it was in response to a number of officer-involved shootings, and they basically offloaded the responsibility, which should have been with the chief of police and the council, to a group of people who by AB 301, cannot receive personal information. They cannot take personal actions against police officers, and they are not allowed information that would be required to make those types of decisions. And so that commission, quite frankly, was a prophylactic for public opinion, and it's unfortunate because they were put in a position to be criticized in a manner they should not have been criticized, because the commission has been doing what they're allowed to do under the law. They are not allowed the same latitude as the Los Angeles Police Commission, and they are not allowed the latitude that the county can, by ordinance and law, institute in the county. And I think anyone that gets up here and makes a big deal about it knew that. And so it's unfortunate that you would take a group of people who have been volunteering a lot of time to do what they are charged to do and what they can do under the law, to receive criticism in that manner as though they could do more than what they're doing. The reality is that in this city, under the law, the police chief and the city council are held accountable for ensuring that the law is upheld in a fair and equitable manner, and that appropriate discipline is applied when it is necessary. So that is my comment about that article. Just because somebody writes something in an article, you have to read what it says. And what it says is they, by law, cannot do the things that was imputed that they could do. Okay, so myself and the council, we take responsibility for the ultimate outcomes. You know, whatever that investigation reveals, if it reveals that all actions were justified, we'll stand behind the officers. If it shows that we need training or if discipline is necessary, we'll hold the chief accountable for administering the discipline. And that's what we do in America. We don't just get up and make comments and condemn people without the facts. And unfortunately, things that unfold in a few seconds can sometimes take up to a year to resolve. You've seen trials that go on for years, and these officers deserve no less than their due process, because you're talking about their liberty too. We have great sympathy for the families, for the two people that lost their lives, and we were going to investigate this thoroughly, and we're going to hold people accountable if there's something to be held accountable for. And so that's the best answer I can give you right now. And as far as this, whatever this nonsense was about the business section, you know, I saw an article that asked if NFL ratings are down, or is that a cause for concern? The reality is that TV ratings go up and down. I'll tell you this, though. I'll tell you that there'll be 70,000, 80,000 people in that stadium every day that it's open, and we're not worried about that. And I'll tell you what, I'll take our chances against anybody else that doesn't have a major entertainment venue like the Forum or the NFL stadium that we're going to have. And I'm proud of it. So, you know, it seems we have some residents that just look for that dark cloud, but unfortunately there are no dark clouds to be found right now. And so I'm sure the council is not second-guessing itself for having 100% developer financed NFL stadium and the public portions here in the city of Inglewood. We're proud that we accomplished that. And you know what? 99.999% of the residents are extremely proud that we've accomplished what no one could do in over 2 decades. And that's bring the NFL back to the Los Angeles County region. And with that, we're adjourned.